my name is Kevin Foss and I work for Bendix Spicer Foundation Brake. Today we're going to talk a little bit about air brake chambers. Today we have two different style brake chambers that we process right now. We have an unsealed and a sealed chamber. We're also going to talk about preventive maintenance and what you should be looking for when you're doing your preventive maintenance. First thing you want to maintain when you crawl underneath a vehicle is you want to make sure that the chambers have no damage at all. None around the parking brake side, service brake, on either one. Next thing you want to do is cycle the brake a couple of times, making sure that the slack adjusters and push rods all extend out equally and retract equally. Third thing you want to do is go ahead and release the parking brakes and check for air leaks. So while you're checking for air leaks, you're underneath and you can listen for air leaks. You look around the fittings, make sure they're not leaking. You look and listen through the caging bolt holes, looking for and listening for air leaks. If you don't find any, apply the service brake, and again, listen for any air leaks. If none are found, then you can go ahead and continue your inspection. So during your inspection, you also want to make sure that you look and make sure that the caging bolt plugs are all in place. If they're not in place, make sure that you reinstall them. But before you do that, you want to go ahead and pull them out and take a flashlight and you can look inside to see if the springs are not damaged, or a bore scope. A bore scope works real well to look in there and look at the springs to see if they're damaged. The other way you can check to see if a spring is damaged is by pounding on the chamber and listen for any rattling. If the springs are broken, you can hear them rattle. But visual inspection is the best way, because then you can go ahead and catch if a spring is starting to break, cracking, or any damage to it, that you can go ahead and take care of that before it gets back to the road and gets caught on a DOT inspection. So the difference between these two chambers are, this chamber has air ports, vent holes, all right? Water can get in and get out this way. This chamber is completely sealed. Water cannot get inside this top chamber like it does here. So even with this plug in here, we also have vent holes that lets the water in and out. So on this chamber here, this chamber is a sealed chamber. There's no vent holes in the parking brake side of this chamber. The reason is because we have this cap. This cap is special to this and designed with a check valve in it. So this cap screws in and out. It's always a good idea always to make sure that the caps are in place. All right, and you can tighten these down. You screw them down in there and you tighten this down 10 to 15 foot-pounds. Once you do that, as the chamber cycles, when you release the brakes and set the brakes, when you release the brakes, the spring will collapse. It pushes the air that's inside the chamber out through this vent. And when you set the brakes, the spring will expand and this valve will seal so no water or anything can enter the chamber. So again, this chamber and this chamber are the same, except for this is sealed and this is vented. Inspections are all the same. You always want to make sure that you check for any damages or anything in that order. Earlier we were mentioning about using a bore scope for inspections. As you can see here, you can see a crack on the spring that you would never know when you would pound on the side of the chamber. This is actually a great thing to see, because then now you can change this chamber before it gets out on the road and completely fails, causing a DOT out of service effect. In conclusion, with wrapping up what we've discussed already today, I want to just go ahead and remind you that when you do have a parking brake spring that has failed or close to failing, the push rod will not extend out as far as the rest of them on that axle or on both axles. So that's something to pay attention to when you're doing your PMs, looking at the placement of the slack adjuster, the slack, and the push rod.